We couldn't resist doing that. Okay.
Well, I know. This is our 4th of July, so we thought that this year, since we are in a time of trouble and tribulations, that our president is called the worst situation our nation has been in the history of our nation, that we would read something from the hero of the Democratic Party, Franklin Roosevelt, aimed at this current president, all elected officials, and the members of the press on both sides of the issue.
I know, and he said this how many years ago? January 6, 1941.
That's right. So for basically for those elected officials, journalists that have forgotten they once believed in protecting freedom, Franklin Roosevelt's annual address to Congress, the 4 freedoms.
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world.
The third is freedom from want, which translated in the world terms means economic understandings, which will secure every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. And the 4th is the freedom from fear, which translated in world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such point in such a thorough fashion no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor in the world. That's why we have an army, Mr. President, and the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's why we have an army.
But this part is addressed. Imagine that Franklin Roosevelt is standing here. He's now going to be talking to the current President of the United States, the current Congress, and the press on both sides of the issue. And it's such as, Mr. President, members of Congress, I address you, the members of Congress, in a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. I use the word unprecedented because at no previous time has American security been as seriously threatened as it is today.
Since the permanent formation of our government under the Constitution in 1789, most of the periods of crisis in our history have related to our domestic affairs. Fortunately, only one of these, the 4-year war between the states, ever threatened our national unity. Today, thank God, 130 million Americans in 48 states have forgotten points of the compass in our national unity.
It's true that prior to 1914, the United States had been disturbed by events on other continents. We had even engaged in 2 wars with European nations and a number of undeclared wars in the West Indies, in the Mediterranean and Pacific for the maintenance of American rights and for the principles of peaceful commerce. But in no case has a serious threat been raised against our national safety or our continued independence.
What I seek to convey is the historic truth that the United States as a nation has at all times maintained clear, definite opposition to any attempt to lock us in behind an ancient Chinese wall while the procession of civilization went past. Today, thinking of our children and of their children, we oppose enforced isolation for ourselves or for any other part of the Americas.
That determination of ours, extending over these years, was provided, for example, during the quarter-century wars following the French Revolution, while the Napoleonic struggles did threaten the interests of the United States because of a French foothold in the West Indies and Louisiana, and while we engaged in the War of 1812 to vindicate our right to peaceful trade, it was nevertheless clear that neither France nor Great Britain or any nation was aiming at the domination of the world.
In like fashion, from 1815 to 1914, 99 years, no single war in Europe or in Asia constituted a real threat against our future or against the future of any other American nation. Except in the Maximilian interlude in Mexico, no foreign power sought to establish itself in this hemisphere, and the strength of the British fleet in the Atlantic has been a friendly strength. It is still a friendly strength. Even when the World War broke out in 1914, it seemed to contain only small threat of danger to our own American future. But as time went on, the American people began to visualize what the downfall of democratic nations might mean to our democracy.
We need not overemphasize the imperfections of peace of Versailles. We need not harp on the failure of democracy to deal with the problem of world reconstruction. We should remember that the peace of 1919 was far less unjust than the kind of pacification which began even before Munich, which is being carried on under the new order of tyranny that seeks to spread over every continent today. The American people have unalterably set their faces against the tyranny.
Every realist knows that the democratic way of life is, at this moment, being directly assailed in every part of the world, assailed either by arms or by secret spending of poisonous propaganda by those who seek to destroy unity and promote discord in nations that are still at peace.
During 16 long months, this assault has blotted out the whole pattern of democratic life in an appalling number of independent nations, great and small. The assailants are still on the march, threatening our nation, great and small. Therefore, as your President, performing my constitutional duty to give the Congress information of state of democracy, I unhappily find it necessary to report that the future and safety of our country and our democracy are overwhelmingly involved in events beyond our borders.
Armed defense of democratic existence is now being gallantly waged in 4 continents. If that defense fails, all the population and all the resources of Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australasia, boy, that is one word, huh? Will be dominated by the conquerors. Let us remember that the total of those populations and the resources in those 4 continents greatly exceeds the sum total of the population and the resources of the whole of the Western hemispheres many times over.
In times like these, it is immature and incidentally untrue for anyone to brag that an unprepared America single-handedly with one hand tied behind its back can hold off the whole world. The realistic American can expect from a dictator's peace, international generosity, our return of independence, our world disarmament, freedom of expression, our freedom of religion, or even to carry out business.
Such a peace would bring no scrutiny for us or for our neighbors. Those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. As a nation, we may take pride in the fact that we are soft-hearted, but we cannot afford to be soft-hearted. We must always be wary of those who with sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal preach the ism of appeasement. We must especially beware of that small group of selfish men who would clip the wings of the American eagle in order to feather their own nests.
To that new order we oppose the greater conception of moral order. A good society is able to face schemes of world domination and foreign revolutions alike without fear. Since our beginning of American history, we have been engaged in change, in a perpetual peaceful revolution, a revolution that goes on steadily, quietly adjusting itself to changing conditions without the concentration camp or the quick time in the ditch. The world order which we seek is cooperation of free countries working together in a friendly, civilized society.
This nation has placed its destiny in the hands and heads and hearts of its millions of free men and women, and its faith and freedom under the guidance of God. Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights or keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose. To that high concept, there can be no end save victory.
All the current president needs to do is simply substitute the economic conditions for a wartime condition, and you basically have exactly the same thing that Franklin Roosevelt was talking about in 2010. But this president doesn't believe, as Mr. Roosevelt, that our country is able to stand with others and solve the problem. Because, as he has said so repeatedly, our nation is no longer great, and we must depend upon others to do the job for us.
So the 4 freedoms.